Hamilton led the times for Ferrari in Bahrain. But did he really dominate? Before I tell you, tell me in the comments, do you think Ferrari can challenge for the title this year? Because the numbers tell a very different story. Is it real speed, or just an illusion? The second day of testing in Bahrain left one clear headline. Hamilton, on his debut with Ferrari, set the fastest time with a 1 minute and 29.379 seconds in the morning session. At first glance, it might seem like a clear sign that the Italian team has built a car capable of fighting for victory since the start of the season. But when you look at the details, the story changes. For a start, the difference with George Russell was 0.399 seconds. A considerable margin, but one that doesn't tell the whole truth. While Ferrari ran C4 tires, a soft compound designed to extract maximum performance on a fast lap, Mercedes and McLaren opted for harder tires, focusing on race simulation and collecting degradation data. This is a key point. In preseason testing, teams have different objectives. Some seek to understand the stability of the car on long runs, accumulating as much mileage as possible to evaluate reliability and behavior in race conditions. Others prefer to explore performance in qualifying, looking for references on single-lap potential. Ferrari, at least in this session, seems to have prioritized pure speed over consistency. The context reinforces this idea. Carlos Sainz, with Williams, completed 127 laps, the highest time of the day, while teams such as Mercedes and Red Bull ran long stint simulations to analyze tire degradation. Instead, Ferrari opted for shorter runs on softer compounds. The problem with this strategy is that the times can be misleading. Setting a fast time with optimal tires and low fuel levels is not the same as replicating it in the middle of the race with a competitive strategy. In addition, track conditions during the morning session are usually more favorable than in the afternoon, when the asphalt temperature increases and affects grip. Another key is the evolution of the pace in the race. In Formula One, a competitive car must not only be fast on a lap, but maintain a constant performance during a Grand Prix. And this is where Ferrari could have a problem. While the SF-25 showed great performance in qualifying, tire degradation in long runs was higher than that of Red Bull and McLaren. This excessive wear on the rear tires could mean that the car's setup is not completely balanced, which would affect its performance on demanding circuits such as Barcelona or Silverstone. Rival teams are clear about this. Red Bull's Helmut Marko pointed out that Mercedes and McLaren look more serious threats in the long term, while Ferrari has not yet shown consistency in race simulations. George Russell, meanwhile, highlighted the stability of Mercedes' W16 at different fuel levels, something that could be key once the season starts. Hamilton's time is an indication that Ferrari has found speed in qualifying, but the real question is whether that speed will translate into a competitive car throughout a Grand Prix. The difference between a fast lap in preseason and performance in a full race is huge, and if Ferrari do not address tire degradation and the balance of the SF-25, the dominance they showed in the times could be for naught when it really matters. Lewis Hamilton completed 45 laps on his second day of testing with the Ferrari SF-25, enough time to begin to learn the characteristics of the car and adjust his driving style to a completely new machine. From the start, his focus was on understanding how the car responds to different setup changes, a key process in his adaptation to Ferrari after more than a decade at Mercedes. One of the aspects that stood out the most was the stability of the SF-25 in high-speed corners. Hamilton's initial feedback suggests that the car allows for gradual adjustments without unexpected reactions, a crucial point for a driver who relies heavily on confidence in his car. The ability to make subtle changes to the balance without the car becoming unpredictable is an advantage that Ferrari appears to have achieved with its new design. However, there were aspects that required more detailed work. Hamilton spent much of his time on track evaluating the braking system and the response of the accelerator pedal, two factors essential to his driving style. At Mercedes, his method was to take advantage of deep and aggressive braking to put the car in the best position before accelerating again. With the SF-25, the Briton needed to adjust his technique due to differences in weight distribution and the balance of the car when entering the corner. One of the biggest challenges was in the medium-speed corners, where the car showed some difficulty in maintaining grip at the front. Charles Leclerc, in the afternoon session, reported understeer in sequences such as the combination of turns 5, 6 and 7, indicating that the car is not yet fully optimized in terms of downforce. For Hamilton, this represents a point to work on, as his driving style is based on a strong entry into the corner and keeping traction as stable as possible when exiting it. Another key aspect of his adaptation was the car's response to setup changes. Unlike his experience at Mercedes, where adjustments could completely transform the car's behavior, the SF-25 seemed to offer a more predictable range of modifications. This allowed Hamilton to explore different settings with confidence, without fear that small changes to the suspension or brake force distribution would drastically alter the car's feel. But it wasn't all positive. On longer runs, Ferrari began to show problems with degradation on the rear tires. Although Hamilton did not run full race simulations, the first signs point to tire wear being a problem if the right balance is not found in the car's setup. This factor will be decisive in his adaptation, as managing tire wear efficiently is one of the keys to success in modern Formula One. The transition from Mercedes to Ferrari is not just a change of team, but a complete change in the philosophy of the car. Hamilton is in a process of adjustment that requires patience and precision. His ability to interpret the SF-25's reactions and effectively communicate areas for improvement with Ferrari engineers will be fundamental in his evolution within the team. Although the first contact has been promising, the details that remain to be polished will make the difference between a competitive car in qualifying and one capable of fighting for race wins. One of the main weak points that the Ferrari SF-25 revealed on the second day of testing in Bahrain was tire degradation. While the Italian team showed speed on a single lap, its performance on long runs was not consistent, which could compromise its race aspirations if they failed to find a solution before the start of the season. Excessive rear tire wear was one of the most noticeable problems in the long stint simulations. According to the data collected, the SF-25 began to lose performance after approximately 10 consecutive laps, with a drop in lap times more pronounced compared to teams such as Red Bull and McLaren. This trend suggests that Ferrari's aerodynamic setup could be generating excessive load on the rear axle, leading to premature overheating of the tires and a progressive loss of grip. The problem is accentuated on circuits with high-speed corners and demanding traction, where rear tire wear is a key factor in race pace. In the case of Bahrain, areas such as the exit of Turn 10 and Turn 13 are critical points where a car with high degradation loses traction more noticeably, affecting both acceleration and stability on the straights. This forces drivers to modify their driving style to compensate for the loss of grip, which in turn negatively impacts the overall performance of the car. Analysis of the competition reinforces this concern. While Ferrari suffered premature degradation, Red Bull managed to maintain a stable pace with less wear on tires of similar specification. McLaren also showed greater consistency in long runs, indicating that its aerodynamic package manages tire temperatures better throughout a race simulation. Mercedes, on the other hand, opted to run programs focused on evaluating the car's behavior with different fuel levels, but without signs of problems as severe as those shown by Ferrari. Red Bull's advisor Helmut Marko's statements were clear on the matter. According to his analysis, Ferrari could be sacrificing stability in the race in exchange for speed in qualifying, a strategy that could compromise their chances of fighting for victories if they fail to reduce degradation. George Russell, from the Mercedes side, also highlighted that the balance of the W16 remained stable at different fuel levels, something that Ferrari has not yet clearly demonstrated. The degradation problem is not new for Ferrari. During last season, the team already faced difficulties in extending the useful life of its tires compared to its direct rivals. If the SF-25 continues this trend, they could find themselves in a similar situation, forced to conservative strategies or to make earlier pit stops than ideal, which would reduce their room for maneuver in the races. Possible solutions include optimizing the distribution of aerodynamic load and adjusting the rear suspension to reduce stress on the tires. Modifying the way the car transfers weight under acceleration and braking could help relieve pressure on the rear axle, but such changes require extensive testing to avoid compromising other areas of the car's performance. The challenge for Ferrari is to find the balance between speed and consistency. A fast car over one lap does not guarantee results if it cannot maintain the pace in the race. Excessive tire degradation could become the main obstacle to its aspirations, and time to correct this before the first race is limited. The reactions from rival teams made it clear that, although Ferrari showed speed in the Bahrain test, there are still doubts about its actual performance in race conditions. The general perception is that the Italian team has taken a step forward in terms of competitiveness over one lap, but the real question remains its ability to maintain a consistent pace throughout a Grand Prix. From Red Bull, Helmut Marko was quick to express his opinion on what he saw on track. According to his analysis, Ferrari continues to face the same problems as in previous seasons, particularly in tire management during long runs. His statement was blunt: Ferrari is fast, but in the race they still have problems. Mercedes and McLaren seem more serious threats. This reflects a clear position from Red Bull, which considers Ferrari a strong rival in qualifying, but with obvious weaknesses when it comes to consistency and race pace. Marco's comment is not a simple statement without foundation. Red Bull has built its success in recent years thanks to a car that is not only fast in qualifying, but also maintains a stable pace with low tire degradation. In comparison, Ferrari has shown more pronounced wear in pre-season testing, which could translate into more conservative strategies or the need to make pit stops earlier than its rivals, a factor that can be decisive in the outcome of a race. For Mercedes, George Russell also gave his opinion on the current state of the grid. In his case, he highlighted the stability of the W16 at different fuel levels, suggesting that Mercedes has worked on improving the car's versatility in different race conditions. In his words, "We have made a step forward in balance, especially when the car is loaded with fuel. Our pace on long runs has been solid and consistent." This reinforces the idea that Mercedes might have found a solution to the problems that affected them in recent seasons, where a lack of balance and sensitivity to track conditions limited their competitiveness. If the W16 manages to maintain a stable performance on long runs, they could become a serious threat to Ferrari, especially in races where strategy and tire management play a key role. In the case of McLaren, the impressions were also positive. The British team, which had a remarkable evolution in the second half of last season, has maintained a meticulous focus on data collection and optimizing the car's performance in different scenarios. Their long runs have been consistent and, although they did not set the fastest times, their pace in race simulations was competitive. This indicates that they could be in a strong position to fight for podiums and, on certain circuits, even for wins. Another aspect to consider is Williams' strategy, with Carlos Sainz completing 127 laps, the most of the day. This suggests that the team is prioritizing reliability and understanding the car's behavior in race conditions before focusing on qualifying times. This mentality could be key throughout the season, as a consistent and well-balanced car can outperform faster rivals in qualifying if it can remain competitive on long runs. In general, the perception of rival teams is that Ferrari has built a competitive car in terms of pure speed, but still faces question marks regarding its performance in the race. The real test will come when the season starts and they face real racing conditions, where tire management, strategy and consistency will make the difference between fighting for wins or being relegated in the fight for the podium. The second day of testing in Bahrain left a clear picture of the current state of Ferrari and the adaptation process of Lewis Hamilton to his new team. At first glance, the numbers can generate excitement. The SF-25 was the quickest car in the morning, and Hamilton topped the timesheets with a lap that outpaced the competition. However, when looking beyond the stopwatch, key questions arise about the car's true performance in race conditions. Ferrari has shown that it has single-lap speed, an aspect that could be crucial in qualifying during the season. However, tire degradation and inconsistency on long runs are warning signs that cannot be ignored. The drop in performance after 10 consecutive laps indicates that the SF-25 still has areas that require work, especially in downforce management and balance in medium and low-speed corners. The impressions of rivals reinforce these doubts. Red Bull and Mercedes have focused their work on building cars that are not only fast in qualifying, but also maintain a stable pace throughout a full race. In this sense, Ferrari's race simulations were not as robust as those of other teams, which leaves open the possibility that they will face difficulties on circuits that are demanding for tire management. For Hamilton, the first contact with the SF-25 has been positive in terms of adaptation, but it also made it clear that he still needs more time to fully exploit the car's potential. His ability to adjust his driving style to a car with different characteristics to those of the Mercedes he drove for more than a decade will be key to his performance throughout the season. The big question is whether Ferrari will be able to correct its weaknesses before the start of the championship. With Melbourne on the horizon, time to make adjustments is limited. The speed shown in Bahrain is an indication that the team has a competitive base, but if they do not find a solution to tire degradation and balance on long runs, they could find themselves in the same situation as in previous seasons, with a fast car on Saturdays but vulnerable on Sundays. The Bahrain test was just an early taste of what could happen in the season, but it made clear that the fight for the championship will be more complex than just a qualifying time. The real question is whether Ferrari will manage to turn their speed into a sustainable advantage or whether, once again, they will fall behind in the strategic battle that defines races. The season is about to start and the first answers will come on the track. If Ferrari manage to fix their problems, they could be in the fight. If they don't, the speed shown in Bahrain could end up being just a passing illusion. The expectation is high, but the competition will not stop.